All right. So you go, oh my gosh, he said there was going to be a new subject. Didn't know it was going to be this. Well, I didn't either, but it turned into it. So Friday last week, I had a colonoscopy done. Because the prep and procedure are still fresh in my mind, I thought I'd take some time and talk about the importance of this screening and my experience. So first I want to talk about why a colonoscopy is recommended, even if, like me, there are no known issues or gastrointestinal symptoms, and I didn't have anything. So let's get into it. Each year, around 147,000 new cases of colorectal cancer occur in the United States. Roughly 53,000 people die from the disease. Colorectal cancer is the second leading cause of cancer-related deaths in the United States. Experts believe that increased awareness and screening could save at least 30,000 lives each year. Colorectal cancer is highly preventable and can be detected by testing even before there are any symptoms. The American Society for Gastrointestinal Endoscopy encourages everyone age 50 or older to get screened for colorectal cancer, even if you have no signs or symptoms. If you have a family history of colorectal cancer or other risk factors, you may need to begin screening earlier. You always want to talk with your doctor about when to begin screening. Okay? 50 or older though, period, regardless of no symptoms or not, that is the recommendation that everybody should do. The doc had told us that they're lowering it to 45. The data that I'm sharing with you here came directly from the American Society for Gastrointestinal Endoscopy today on their website. So that's what they're showing today. But again, like it says, depending on what's going on, talk with your doc. He or she may want to start you or have you do a screening at age 45, maybe even younger, depending on what's going on. All right. Many people think of colorectal cancer as a disease that only affects men, but the truth is that both men and women have colorectal cancer. About 1 in 23 men will be diagnosed and about 1 in 25 women. So yeah, it's a little bit more prevalent in men, but not a ton more, just a little bit more. Before cancer develops in the colon or rectum, it usually begins as a polyp. A polyp is a small abnormal growth in the tissue lining. So this is basically a representation here with a loop around the polyp, which is what the gastroenterologist will use to remove and cauterize the polyp. When colorectal cancer is found and treated, when it is still small and before it is spread, the 5-year survival rate is about 90%. But because many people do not get screened, only 39% of colorectal cancers are found at that early stage. Only 39% are found at the early stage. Once the cancer has spread to nearby organs or lymph nodes, treating it is much more difficult, and the chance of remaining alive 5 years after the diagnosis is much lower. As you can see, it goes down to 11% when it is at stage 4. 5-year survival rate. Tragically and famously, actor Chadwick Boseman died from stage 4 colon cancer in 2020. He was diagnosed with stage 3 colon cancer in 2016. At age, I guess he would have been 40 then, and fought the progress of the disease for 4 years before it finally took his life. While colon cancer is most commonly an older person's disease, there is an increased prevalence of younger people getting it. Experts aren't exactly sure why yet. They suspect it may be something environmental. So what is a colonoscopy? A colonoscopy is an endoscopic, okay, which just means that they're going to insert a long, thin tube into the body. And endoscopic, inserting a long, thin tube into the body. It's that kind of procedure, and it's used to look for polyps in the lining of the colon or rectum. During a colonoscopy, polyps can be removed to reduce the chances of colorectal cancer occurring in the future. During a colonoscopy, your doctor inserts a thin, flexible tube into your rectum. It's about the size of a finger and slowly moves it through the entire length of the colon. This instrument, called a colonoscope, has a camera and light source and allows your doctor to look at the lining of your colon. So what are the primary risk factors for colon cancer that, other than age, we can control? There are, of course, genetic factors, and there could be other factors, but for this presentation, other than age, which is the #1 risk factor, by the way, I wanted to look at the lifestyle risk factors that we could control. Okay, so other than age, so let me talk about age first, though. Age is the number one risk factor for colorectal cancer. 9 out of 10 people who get colorectal cancer are age 50 or older. We can't do anything about getting older, of course. However, according to the American Cancer Society, the lifestyle factors I'm going to talk about here have been linked to colorectal cancer, and obviously we can do something about most of these. The links between diet, weight, and exercise and colorectal cancer risk are some of the strongest for any type of cancer. If you are overweight or obese, very overweight especially, your risk of developing and dying from colorectal cancer is higher. Being overweight raises the risk of colon and rectal cancer in both men and women, but the link seems to be stronger in men. Getting to and staying at a healthy weight may help lower your risk. If you're not physically active, you have a greater chance of developing colon cancer. Regular, moderate to vigorous physical activity can help lower your risk. Diets that are high in red meats, such as beef, pork, lamb, and liver, and processed meats like hot dogs and some luncheon meats can raise your colorectal cancer risk. Cooking meats at very high temperatures, frying, broiling, or grilling, creates chemicals that might raise your cancer risk. It's not clear how much this might increase your colorectal cancer risk, though. Having low levels of vitamin D may also increase your risk. Following a healthy eating pattern, see if this sounds familiar. Following a healthy eating pattern that includes plenty of fruits, vegetables, and whole grains, and that limits or avoids red and processed meats and sugary drinks, probably lowers risk. Some people who have smoked for a long time are more likely than people who don't smoke to develop and die from colorectal cancer. Smoking is a well-known cause of lung cancer, but it's linked to a lot of other cancers as well. If you smoke and want to know more about quitting, please seek professional help. Do anything you have to do to quit smoking, all right? Colorectal cancer has been linked to moderate to heavy alcohol use. Even light to moderate alcohol intake has been associated with some risk. It is best not to drink alcohol. If people do drink alcohol, they should have no more than 2 drinks a day for men and 1 drink a day for women. This could have many health benefits, including a lowering of risk for many kinds of cancer. Complications of colonoscopy are rare and usually minor when performed by physicians who have been specially trained and are experienced in colonoscopy. Most often, gastroenterologists do the colonoscopies. But the risks include bleeding, usually minor and self-limiting or controlled through the colonoscope, a perforation in the colonic wall, reactions to the sedatives, and complications from existing heart or lung disease. Okay? There are risks. It's not risk-free. So it's time to prep for the colonoscopy. Okay? Prep for a colonoscopy starts days before. Your doc will give you instructions for prepping, so just follow whatever those instructions are and you'll be fine. It might vary just slightly depending on the doc, I'm guessing, whatever their preference is. For me, my procedure was Friday morning and my prep started Tuesday by essentially eliminating vegetables, fruits, and anything with lots of fiber. The instructions said I could have cooked vegetables, but I just dropped them pretty much entirely. This was super weird for me too because I have vegetables at pretty much every single one of my meals every day. And I was telling Mary, I said, this is so weird to purposely be leaving out vegetables. But I did. Left it all out just to be safe, stayed away from any of the nuts and seeds, anything that had any remote amount of fiber in it at all. If it had more than a gram per serving, I didn't eat it. So, what did I eat? Well, Tuesday and Wednesday, remember my procedure was Friday. Tuesday and Wednesday, I had, just for example, meal 1, breakfast, was basically just eggs and rice. Meal 2 was lunch, and it was tuna with maybe some primal mayo, and again rice. And I'm talking about the rice that I had, again, was not a high fiber rice. My snack for the day, let's say just feeding 3, was my protein shake, but without any added kale, because I've been adding kale or collard greens or spinach to my protein shake when I have it each day. But I just skipped all that, didn't add any of that, didn't add any of the banana. Even looked that up to see how much fiber was in a banana. There's more fiber than I was comfortable with. So, and it said no raw fruits in the instructions, so I didn't do it. I followed the instructions to the letter the very best I could. And then my dinner on, you're talking about Tuesday and Wednesday, was some kind of animal flesh protein and rice, or a little bit of cooked white potato, which isn't super fiber rich, especially if you're not having a large amount of it. On the Wednesday night, the last day I could have any solid food, I did splurge, made myself an egg white plus whole egg plus rice flour. I went and got some rice flour instead of the almond flour or coconut flour or whatever that I usually use for things. I got some rice flour because, again, almost no fiber. Made myself a homemade pancake. I added a tablespoon of cashew butter. Checked the fiber on the cashew butter. Had 1 gram of fiber per 2 tablespoons of cashew butter. And then I even added some pure maple syrup to it. So it was nice and splurgy. It was a nice little last meal before what you have to do on Thursday. Total fiber content of the entire pancake was about 2 grams. So anyway, that was weird for me. Anyway, bringing the fiber way down. So on Thursday, the day before the procedure, the instructions were to stick with clear liquids only and absolutely nothing red or purple in color. Why nothing red or purple? Because the colors could stain the lining of the colon and make it harder to tell if that's blood or if it's just red color. So something that was so I obviously stayed away from anything red. That's very clear instructions there. Something that was a bit confusing was what they meant by clear liquids. Most definitions will say a clear liquid is something you can see through at room temperature, but it was confusing, at least to me, because they allowed for coffee. They specifically had on the instructions that coffee was okay. And I don't know about you, but you can't see through my coffee very well. So in the end, what I went with, and I just kept it really simple, what I went with was being able to see through it and not having any visible solids. So that's kind of what I did, is that there should not be any visible solids whatsoever, and you should be able to see through it. And I included making sure that the fruit juice that I had didn't even have any visible natural pulp floating around in it. Again, keep the fiber low. No solids, okay? So for the entire day, all of Thursday, I went with a simple combination of organic apple juice, ingredients. The ingredients on this, by the way, the one you're seeing there, was apple juice, not from concentrate. That's it. Only ingredient in it. And coconut water. Ingredients, coconut water. I wanted to add a little coconut water, even there's not a ton of carbs in it at all, but it has a lot of potassium, a little bit of sodium. So just to get a little bit of electrolyte action, I added the coconut water with the apple, kind of mixed them together, and just drank that all throughout the day. That was all that I had. At some point, I went and looked at Gatorade before I did this. I went and looked at Gatorade as an option, but everything I saw on the shelf was a chemical shitstorm. So I said hard pass to any of that. Didn't need it. I was able to go with just single ingredient, apple juice and coconut water. Both of them single ingredient. Coconut water was just ingredients, coconut water. That was it. And so that's what I did. It's one day. You can do anything for one day. That was just my mindset, and it wasn't that bad. I was hungry. I will say I was hungry. I was ready to eat food. But other than that, we were good to go. All right? So at 5 p.m. Thursday, so procedures on Friday, at 5 p.m. Thursday, I did my first round of prescription soup prep. It's basically go-go juice for the bowels. It's what makes you go and go. Cleans you out. And there are at least a few things besides soup prep that a doctor could prescribe. He gave us a choice, and we kind of landed on this middle ground so that you didn't have to drink a ton of the prep, and instead you just followed up with a ton of water after the prep. That was the advantage of the soup prep from the way I understood it. There was also another one that I think was a lot more expensive that was a pill, but anyway, I just decided to go with kind of the middle ground. I was happy with it. If I had to do it again, I would do this again, so I think that probably says a lot. Anyway, so with what you do with this soup prep is you pour one of those bottles you see into the provided cup that you see, and then that's about 6 ounces, and then you add water up to the fill line to get it up to about a total of 16 ounces of fluid in that cup. You stir it a bit, it's totally clear, and you just drink it down. It had a bit of a fruity flavor and wasn't great, but I had it all gone in under a minute as far as that first cup. And then they want you to drink 32 more ounces of water within an hour or two. And it varies on the instructions. I think on the soup prep instructions, it wants you to drink 32 ounces of water within the next hour. And what I did was just kind of thinking that more flush, more water more potential flushing would be better. And also, we had been advised similarly by nurses and docs along the way. So I drank 64 ounces of additional water, so a half gallon within the hour. So I drank that 16 ounces, including the soup prep, and then I drank another half gallon of pure water within the hour. I started going to the bathroom within about 15 minutes after drinking the soup prep. I probably went another 6 or so times over the next few hours. I say that because I think we're all adults here. We all go to the bathroom. This thing's purpose is to do that. It's to clean you out. And I just think, I wish what I'm telling you guys, I would have seen somewhere the way I'm presenting it before I went through all this. It would have helped kind of, I don't know, alleviate maybe some of the anxiety, or just how does this work, or what's it going to feel like. Anyway, I never had a panicky, oh no, I might not make it, to the bathroom feeling. I never had that. And I never had any gut pain or anything weird. It was just like, hey, you got to go. So go to the bathroom. At 2 a.m., that process I just told you, bottle of soup prep, fill it up to the water line, drink it down. I repeated this whole process with that second bottle at 2 a.m. Friday morning. And again, I went ahead and drank another 64 ounces, another half gallon of water within the hour after downing the soup prep. And basically, I was awake from 2 a.m. until about 4:45 a.m. with similar bathroom trips as before. As you might or might not imagine, since we're all adults here again, what was coming out became clearer and clearer, which is ideal as the second dosing effects did their thing. It's really important that we are really clean down there, so the doc has a great clean view of the intestinal lining. I fell asleep for about 45 minutes at 4:45 a.m., and then it was time to get up about 5:30 and leave for the hospital. Oh, also, I lost 4 pounds between Thursday and Friday. Actually, I weighed myself pretty much every day, but I really wanted to see what happened here. And it was surprising to me. Honestly, I really thought with drinking as much water as I did, and think about all the apple juice and coconut water that I drank throughout the day. I'll tell you about that in just a second. But with all I drank, I thought it's going to be kind of a fluid in, fluid out. I just didn't feel like, it was going to be additional water leaving. Anyway, I thought it would just be more of a water in, water out, but it wasn't. So I lost four body weight pounds, even though I drank close to 2 gallons of total fluid between Thursday and Friday morning. So that's a huge water weight fluctuator, right? Anyway, and I estimated also that I consumed about 500 grams of carbs on Thursday. 500 grams of carbs on Thursday from the apple juice and coconut water, which is about 3 times the amount of carbs I get in a normal day. That's just maybe a point of interest. All right, so as for the day of the procedure, here's how it went for me. I arrived at the hospital at 6:45 a.m. By 7 a.m., I was back in a curtain-divided cubicle. I don't know what to call it. That's what I'm calling it. Wearing only a hospital gown and no-slip hospital socks. All right, so I've got my gown and hospital socks on, and I'm on a gurney bed. I don't know what you call that either. Don't care. You guys you all know what I'm talking about. Then a nurse took my history, entering data in a computer. So I'm laying on my back. She's on my left side, entering data into a computer, asking me lots of questions. While she was doing that on my left side, another nurse is on my right side, starting an IV in my wrist and taking my blood pressure. I did have to laugh as my blood pressure was slightly elevated, and even the nurse on my left side said, hey, she goes, I'm over here asking you all kinds of questions. The other nurse on the other side's poking you with a needle and checking your blood pressure, and you're about to have a procedure. She goes, not a wonder that your blood pressure's up a little bit, which it normally isn't. She goes, what's it normally run? I said, I don't know, like 116 over 68 or something. So anyway, I thought that was kind of funny. So after the IV was in, questions were done being asked, Mary was allowed to come back with me after that. Okay, so now Mary's with me in the room, in this little curtained off cubicle thing. She's with me. At about 8 a.m.-ish, all these are ish except for the, kind of the arrival time and the 7 a.m. Those are probably pretty close. The rest of these are ish. Around 8 a.m., the anesthesiologist came in and asked me all of the questions pertinent to anesthesia, and then off he went. Fortunately, I was able to answer no to everything he had to ask. Have you any history of this, any history of that, any this, any that, taking any of this, taking any of that? No, 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 no. He was obviously happy about all that. At about 8:30, The gastroenterologist came in, checked a few vitals, gave me a brief rundown of what was going to happen, the shortened version of potential risks, and off he went. Okay, wasn't in there a long time. Checked a few things, said a few things, and off he went. Very shortly thereafter, in came the nurse who was going to be in the procedure room with me, and the certified registered nurse anesthetist. Always have to slow down my speech on that. Don't say that word a lot. Anesthetist, CRNA. Anyway, the brakes were taken off the gurney bed, and the CRNA said she was going to give me something to relax me a bit. She pushed what we know was Versed, a drug known to help us relax, reduce anxiety, and also to decrease any memory. She pushed it obviously right through the IV portal, so I didn't feel a thing, of course. And when she said she was going to give me something to relax me a bit, that was fine with me, because I wasn't overly anxiety-ridden, but obviously there was a little anxiety there. So within 10 seconds, I started to feel a smidge groggy, but wasn't sure it was doing anything for real. I wasn't sure if it was my imagination. I remember entering the procedure room, and that was it. The doors opened on the procedure room. That's my last memory of the procedure. That's it. Not getting turned to my side. Nothing. I don't remember anything after entering the procedure room. My next memory was waking up back in the curtained area with Mary standing at my side. Mary was already in there with me. For the procedure itself, the CRNA, I believe she's probably the one, she gave me propofol. We know I was given propofol in the procedure itself, which made sure I was asleep enough to not notice or feel a thing, which is how I prefer it. Thank you very much. I was groggy upon awakening, a little bit high, but within 15 or so minutes, the doc came in to give me the report. He found and removed a few polyps, which is the purpose of the procedure, to look for them, and if you find them, remove them if possible. He said he'd be sending them off to pathology, pretty standard, to be analyzed for cancer, and off he went again. Shortly thereafter, I was getting dressed. Mary went and got the car, and I was wheelchaired to the entrance and pull-up area where Mary had the car. It's mandatory that you be wheelchaired out of the building after this procedure, not because you can't walk, which I could have, but due to potential risk and liability, obviously, if you should fall. You are under the influence, as the nurse told me. You have, with the anesthesia, you are under the influence for several hours, and what she said is just out of safety for about 24 hours. In all, I was at the hospital from 6:45 a.m. until about 10 a.m.-ish. Okay? I had no pain whatsoever, no gas or bloating, nothing. I resumed eating normally, beginning with the next meal once I got home. I was more tired the rest of Friday, which is to be expected after the stress of the pre-procedure anxiety and anesthesia. They said, as I said, 24 hours to get the anesthesia out of your system, to not be considered under the influence, at least in some way. So there was no workout for me on Friday, of course. By Saturday, I was in the gym doing a moderate chest, back, and shoulder day. Okay? I could tell that this Saturday was not a day to go nuts in the gym, but I definitely felt good enough to go in and do a workout, and that's what I did. So that's how it went for me, folks. That's my story. So, we got the pathology back. Got that back on Monday. The polyps were non-cancerous, but because there were a few of them, this doc said, let's do it again in 3 years. Fine with me. So some don't have to go back for 5 or 10 years after a colonoscopy, whatever. If I'm genetically prone to polyps or whatever the case, I'm doing all I can lifestyle-wise. I'll just follow what the doc wants me to do and have him take another look in a few years. Okay? So that should be it for now until the next 3 years, and he goes in and looks again. Hopefully it's even better. But anyway, who knows, right? But something that struck me after going through all this is how my ideology is such that I consider myself someone who uses scientific consensus as my personal shortcut. Okay, we need shortcuts because we only have so many hours in a day. You know, I run 2 companies. I have a wife. I have children. I have a dog. I have extracurricular activities, whatever it may be. You know, friends, you name it, family to talk to, things, life. And so we all need shortcuts. So for me, with my personal ideology is I use scientific consensus as a personal shortcut for making major decisions that could impact my health. And in the cases of vaccines, that I'm going to, just stay with me, but in the case of that can impact my health, and in the case of vaccines, others' health. So I use scientific consensus to help give me a personal shortcut to making decisions in these areas. So stay with me here on this, because it relates to this. So like everyone, like I was saying, I've limited time or expertise to try and do my own research on very complex scientific matters. So as it has related to the vaccines, I do look at the consensus views, which isn't 100% in agreement. Consensus view is the majority in agreement. But the consensus views of the CDC, the FDA, the NIH, and WHO, and what their positions have been, and also what the consensus views of physicians have been since the recommendations came out. Overwhelmingly, the consensus view from these bodies is to get vaccinated. So I did. So why am I just now at 56 getting my first colonoscopy? I mean, the scientific consensus view is for everyone 50 plus, no matter what, to get a colonoscopy, and even younger than 50 years of age, if you have a family history or other factors your physician deems worthy of getting screened. So for me, I had an appointment scheduled with my gastroenterologist to have a colonoscopy done when I was about 50 years old, about 6 years ago. I canceled the appointment because that was the exact time, for any of you who've known me for a long time and I've talked about it, you know I had a period of time where my back was just, I'll say, really it was awful. It just was. And I'm not going to get into it here. But anyway, I canceled the appointment because right about that time it was when my back was around its worst, and I wasn't sleeping in a bed. I wasn't lying on my back. I was sleeping in a chair. I couldn't get comfortable in this position, couldn't get comfortable in that position. I was in a lot of pain. I was taking the maximum dose of Tylenol and the maximum dose of Aleve every single day, and I did that for about a year and a half. So I had that going on when I was about 50, so I canceled the appointment, and I said, I just don't think I'm going to be able to get comfortable. I'm really nervous because I was having back spasms at the time. It was really painful, and I just said, no thanks, I'm not doing it right now, I'll reschedule. So then what happened? Well, two things. Time gets away, but also, it took 2 to 3 years to get my back in decent enough shape. This was not a 3-month recovery. This was not something short. It took 2 or 3 years, 15 specialists, and then just ongoing physical therapy and fascial tissue massage and so on and so on and so on to break up the scar tissue and things that were going on. So what happened besides just it taking 2 or 3 years to finally get to the point where you're, all right, you are sleeping in a bed. Okay, you can get into positions. Everything doesn't hurt. Well, I had a Cologuard test done in 2020 instead of a colonoscopy because obviously in that year I couldn't schedule a colonoscopy because all the elective procedures were being canceled because of COVID. At least locally here they were. And Cologuard, if you're not aware of it, is an at-home, basically a stool check, and you send it in and they at least can give you a report. It has some validity to it, obviously. Even my gastroenterologist was happy that I had had it done. However, it's never going to be a first best compared to a colonoscopy. But anyway, I had that done in 2020. And then also, since I did have maybe a year or two in there prior to 2020 where I could have gotten a colonoscopy after the back was relieved, if I'm being honest, I let some fear creep in over the risks of having a colonoscopy be done. I let those risks creep in to my mindset. So as I've thought this through, and that's why I brought up the vaccines and this whole scientific consensus and my personal ideology and how I do things and all that, as I thought this through in 2021, I thought, if I'm a person who relies on scientific consensus, that's what I would tell someone, if that's what I believe, if that's in my ideology, because I need a shortcut because I just don't, I'm not going to take the time, I don't have the time, and I don't have the expertise, even being a health coach. So as someone who relies mostly on scientific consensus as a shortcut to researching evidence-based best practices, I thought, if I'm doing that on the vaccines and things that are kind of major going on right now, then shouldn't I be doing the same and applying the same ideology and so forth for getting a colonoscopy? I see it this way. The vaccines are not risk-free. They're not. While incredibly rare, negative reactions, a few even deadly, have occurred. A colonoscopy isn't without risk. While incredibly rare, the procedure could go horribly wrong. But all things considered, I got the vaccine based on the scientific consensus with risks taken into consideration. No guarantees though. The scientific consensus for getting a colonoscopy for early intervention and prevention of colon cancer is just as strong or stronger than the consensus for getting vaccinated. So, I'm thinking to myself, you're not applying the same principles here, the same, guidelines for yourself, that you say you do and that you believe you do. So I was like, so you need to. So I just said it was time to apply the same thinking to getting the colonoscopy. So there you have it. Scientific consensus says get a colonoscopy, especially 50 plus, no matter what. And then if you have other factors, depending on what your doc says or depending on what your history is, you may need to even get one younger. It's not without potential risk. However, risks are usually very rare, usually minimal. There's no guarantee. Even so, that's my story. I hope that this helps somebody to make the best choice for themselves as we go forward. And I wish I'd have seen somebody doing what I just did tonight a few years back. I probably would have gotten the colonoscopy done even sooner. Anyway, that's that. That's my story. Let's keep rocking and rolling.